going on, Warriors? So today's video is going to be a little different. Wanted to back things up and take a look at realistic and reality more than just prepping and planning and survival and everything else. With everything looming right now, especially the economic crisis, which could cause a collapse in different markets, people could lose their jobs. It could be very bad if things are not figured out sooner than later. With that said, I wanted to talk about what reality is really going to be like in a collapse situation. There's a lot of creators currently that push these, almost like training sessions. Like, if you do these things, you'll survive. If you do this, you'll be just fine. If you have this gear, you have these weapons, or you have this food supply. In the end, it really doesn't matter. None of those things really matter. They're all very, very important. You should have, ammo stockpiled for hunting and for protection. You should have food. You should have water. You should have medical supplies. These are all very important things. And the most important thing above all of those, though, is going to be the knowledge that you're gaining right now while gathering those supplies. Knowledge should be far above everything else. You should be studying, you should be learning, you should be practicing and training as well as best you can. And I know this is a lot, especially with those of us who have families. It's very difficult to find that time balance where you're, spending time with your family and being active and present with your family, but also doing what you need to make sure that you protect and you can provide for your family in the event of a disaster. Now, aside from those things, though, the reality is, in a full collapse or a disaster situation, a lot of people aren't going to make it. And they could have all of the stuff and they could have the knowledge. It's just reality, unfortunately. But don't let that discourage you from the fact that you should still be doing all of the things, right? All the things. We talk about that in some of our videos. We've talked about that on our podcast. Do all the things. And that means get supplies, get ammo, get water, get food, medical, all of that stuff. But also, train your mind. Learn. Expand. A lot of this comes down to your mental ability of being able to work through situations and make realistic solutions to problems that present themselves to you. The second thing that goes along with this is going to be having plans. And I know you can't plan for everything, but having as many plans as possible helps to deal with all the different scenarios that might pop up, especially, communications plans with your family or with your group. Another thing we push is having a group of people that you can work with in the event of these situations. But have plans. Take the PACE plan, the primary, alternative, contingency, and emergency. Typically, it's used for communication. It's used to, have different communication methods like cell phone, then, maybe a radio, like a ham radio, or then satellite phone. That's just a really bad example, but you have a primary, an alternate, a contingency, and an emergency option. That way, if one fails, you go to the next one, next one, next one, next one. Use the PACE plan for everything you can. Use it for water. You have bottled water, right, that you have stored up. If that fails, you have backup water available. If that fails, if you have a river or stream by you, having filters or some way of sanitizing the water, boiling filters, so on and so forth. That's your third option. And then your fourth option is maybe you have to move to get some water somewhere else that exists that you can get. Again, bad examples. I'm kind of just going off the fly here a little bit. But use those PACE plans. Again, reality is no one's going to be prepared 100% for what happens. No one's going to have plans for everything that happens. Do the best that you can, and don't worry about spending a ton of money on cool tools and supplies. Supplies are important, but cool tools and all these other things that a lot of people try to push. Focus on what you can learn. Focus on doing with what you can with what you have, as well as, growing and learning. Our growing and learning is the biggest thing we push here. Learn from people, but you don't have to buy into these hacks of like, oh, this is the best way, this is the only way you're going to survive, or this is the only way that you'll make it. Because the reality is, it's going to be very difficult for anyone to make it. But it's really going to come down to the skills that you've obtained and the ability that you have to think logically and analytically through solutions. So, learn and train and grow your mind. So, like, 3 best things I can tell you right now that are going to help. Because in an economic collapse or any of those types of situations, it's going to be very difficult, and a lot of people are not going to be able to do anything about it. The reason why is chaos. Chaos will be the primary force behind everything. When food runs out or people can't work and they have to start stealing for food or whatever in a full economic collapse, chaos is going to happen because people are going to panic because they didn't have plans prepared. They didn't have things somewhat thought out. Think of scenarios. And, people may call it daydreaming or, you're wanting a disaster to happen. And the reality is none of us really want a disaster to happen. I don't. I like my life the way it is. I'd rather not have to, rough it in the woods and everything else. I do enjoy doing that from occasion to occasion, but I don't want to do that permanently. But, daydream about situations. What happens if this happens? What do I do in this situation? Or what do I do in this scenario? Start writing those things out. Start writing what you think would work. Do some research on if that actually would work. And if it doesn't, make adjustments to it. Make a plan for that. Memorize these plans. Go over them with your family. Talk them out. Make it a game at dinner. Talk to your kids like, well, what happens if we get hit by a storm and the power goes out? What are we going to do? Use that. It doesn't have to be, you're not, daydreaming for something to happen. You are daydreaming on what you will do in that situation. So, with reality, it's going to be very difficult, and a lot of people will not make it in a disaster or a collapse of some kind. But you have much better odds if you think now and plan ahead now, not just on supplies, but also on the mental aptitude of it. What knowledge have you gained? What things have you learned? What books have you stockpiled? Or few books that you have with you that you can carry with you that will help you get through these rough moments. So, take all those things that I just said and learn with them. Go run. Go do something. Build your plan and be prepared for what's coming. And hopefully, we don't have to. But in the event that we do have to use it, you should have everything you need. So, best of luck. Learn, train, and grow. And we'll see you next time.